our beloved viewers. It's 9 p.m. You are watching on live RTD channel. Welcome to this English news edition. Here are the major stories. The head of state at the opening of a 33 African Union summit. The President Anglais preside over the work of a peace council. And on the international scene, Thailand a soldier gunned down after a Mali shooting. Those were the headlines. Thanks for joining us in our newsroom. On the sidelines of this African Union summit, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margili, chaired the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. The issues is the worrying situation in Libya and the crisis in the Sahel. These security issues have been at the heart of a discussion to propose with the one voice a solution to the crisis in Libya and the Sahel. A Sahel that today crystallize the international security, ecological and demographic issues, one of the most vulnerable in the world. The United Nations Security General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, the President of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, the President of Egypt and Chairman of the African Union, the Commissioner for Peace and Security, African President, and diplomats, all concerned by the Libyan question and the Sahel issues. These reflect the determination of Africans to take the initiative in determining their destiny and meeting the challenges of peace, democracy, and security. The head of state and government are committed to combat and putting an end to the scourge of conflict, which constitute to the main obstacles of the socio-economic development of the continent. The head of state made an important statement at the opening of a Peace and Security Council, the African Union. Let's listen to the head of state.
And peace and blessing be upon the Prophet, his family, and his companions. Mr. President, Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Mr. Chairman of the Commission, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I should like to extend to the Prime Minister my warmest thanks and gratitude to you, your government, and the Ethiopian people for the warm and frontier welcome which, as usual, has been extended to me and my delegations since our arrival in your beautiful country. I would like to take this opportunity to wish you all the very best for this new year. I wish our continent peace, security, stability, and prosperity. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, silencing arms in Africa is not a choice, but an imperative. Rightly, our Assembly has pledged in 2013 not to pass on the burden of conflict and destruction to the next generation of Africans, and which we have pledged to end all wars by 2020. We have now reached the fateful date. Although we are far from our goal, this does not mean that we have been resting on our laurels either, because since the early days of our organization, we had set up a conflict management center that has been continuously reformed to meet the needs of our continent up to its current format, which is the APSA, African Peace and Security Architecture. So what can be done to prevent this persistence or the recurrence of conflicts in some parts of our continent? In my view, building resilient societies is essential to silence guns in the first place. This implies strong institutions that respond to the needs of a citizen, good governments, and inclusive politics. In recent years, the continent has made great strides not only in deepening democracy and democratic institutions, notably through the implementation of the African government's architecture such as the APRM, but also in developing knowledge, skills, and expertise in the provision, management, and resolution of conflicts in Africa. Secondly, we must remain strong and vigilant, both in our deterrence, prevision, and response capacities. We must remain attentive to the people by encouraging the creation of platforms that facilitate dialogue, and their participation in political and economic processes in order to promote equity. We must also accelerate development by eradicating poverty and inequality, thereby addressing the deep structural factors of African conflicts. Furthermore, we need to strengthen local and national capacities for conflict prevention and management so that women, youth, heads of government, religious leaders, and others can all be trained to manage conflicts at their source, thereby preventing the escalation of those conflicts. Finally, we need to encourage their participation in peace infrastructures and other mechanisms, such as national early warning coordination centers, the consequences of climate change, among others, threatening the food security for populations and thus leading to displacement of populations, bring their share of inter-community conflicts at borders. For example, in the 90s, the IGAD region was experiencing some 30 intercommunal conflicts, a proliferation of small arms and light weapons, and many cross-border pastoral conflicts. It is in this spirit that in 22 we set up the Sea Warn mechanism in our region, which brought together Djibouti, Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia, Uganda, Sudan, Eritrea, Southern Sudan joined Sea Warn as soon as it became independent. Sea Warn's main mission was to assist situations that could potentially lead to violence or conflict and to prevent escalation. As these disputes are now expressed in automatic weapons, not forgetting the prying terrorist groups for whom these loopholes represent unhoped for opportunities and through which they thrive, Mr. President.
In the second part of his speech, the head of state has also made an important speech at the opening of the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. I propose you to listen to the head of state.
Despite the progress made in pacifying and stabilizing the continent, the challenges remain significant as many sister countries remain trapped in the vicious cycle of violent conflict due to the transitional crime, terrorism, and the proliferation of small arms and light weapons. Terrorism and violent extremism are a scourge on our continent, a scourge that leaves in its wake devastation, despair, and tragedy. All of us are exposed to it, and each and every one of us is a potential target. In the face of these threats, cooperation between states is no longer a duty of solidarity, but an imperative of common interest, because our lives depend on it. In that regard, Djibouti is home to the Regional Center on Violent Extremism, which is a center of excellence dedicated to the training, dialogue, and research. It is essential to increase the number of such centers, to cooperate closely among countries, to share information on an ongoing basis, to raise awareness through sensation, and to build bulwarks against the manipulation of conscience, especially among young people, Mr. President. And Africa without conflict is, of course, the primary responsibility of Africans. We are capable of making peace available and lasting reality to our continent. But as the saying goes in our country, a hand does not wash itself. Silencing guns for good requires everyone's participation. As we have seen, the partnership between the African Union and the United Nations has already borne fruit in various countries on our continent. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres, Musa Faki, and Ramatan Lamara, who have worked closely together to implement this initiative. Over the past 2 years, they have developed and strengthened a shared capacity to detect and diffuse crises before they escalate and to resolve them. It is only by being united and in solidarity, dear brothers, and speaking with one voice that we will be able to achieve our goals, because the challenge is enormous. Once again, it is an honor and a pleasure to be among you. Thank you for your kind attention.
The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margile, received today in his residence in Addis Ababa the President of the European Commission, Mr. Charles Michel, as a part of the courtesy visit. The talks of this meeting concern center on ways and means to enhance and develop friendship and cooperation relation between the Republic of Djibouti and the European Union, and the progress made in the file of a fruitful cooperation between the two parties. The meeting was attended by the head of diplomacy, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, the ambassador of Djibouti in the United States, the United Nations representative, Mr. Mohammed Ziad, and the ambassador of Djibouti in Addis Ababa, Mohammed Idris Farah. And in an interview, the head of European delegation recalled the various exchanges they had on the common ambition to strengthen the partnership between Africa and the European Union, between Djibouti and European Union. He said, "We have seen how we have been able to fight together to reduce the threat of piracy and to have more stability and security. It is clear that there are issues at the stakes of G5 Sahel for which the signal given by the African Union of a significant mobilization will be essential for the future." He said, "I have indicated that the European Union wishes to extend, amplify, and intensify a partnership with African countries to reduce security threats in order to reduce the terrorism." The Peace and Security Council of Africa Union held a meeting yesterday, Saturday, in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa to discuss the files of a conflict in the continent, foremost of which is the Libyan crisis and the security situation in the Sahel coast countries that witness frequent attack by army groups. The session, which was chaired by His Excellency Ismail Margeli, Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio, was attended by the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, chairpersons of the African Union Commission, Mr. Mustafa Faki, and other leaders and diplomats from the African continent in particular. Mr. Antonio Guterres had demanded at the time previously that the army's embargo imposed on Libya be respected and that a final solution be sent to the militant to the country, considering that the flow of armies had depended on the crisis. Mr. Guterres stressed that it is a widening of Libya, stressing that the policy and the political process is the only ways to achieve peace, unite, and the African Union works together continuously to resolve the crisis that threatens security and peace in Africa, stressing that the United Nations believes in a strong African rules in resolving the Libyan crisis and conflict. In an important speech delivered on this occasion, the head of state, His Excellency Ismail Margeli, immediately thanked the Ethiopian Prime Minister, his government, and the Ethiopian people for the warm welcome. Let's listen to the head of state.
Excellences, Monsieur le chef d'État et de gouvernement, Excellences, Monsieur Antonio Guterres, secrétaire général des Nations Unies, Monsieur Moussa Faki Mohamed, président de la Commission, et M. Ismail Chergui, commissaire à la paix et à la sécurité de l'Union africaine, Monsieur le Président de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies, Mesdames et Messieurs, permettez-moi à l'entendre.
Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Moussa Faki Mohamed, President of the Commission, Mr. Ismail Chergui, Commissioner for Peace and Security of the African Union, Mr. President of the United Nations General Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to thank my brother, the Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, and his government for the warm welcome I have received since my arrival in this beautiful city of Addis Ababa. I should also like to express my warm thanks to the Commission of the African Union for the excellent organization of this Peace and Security Council Summit on Libya and the Sahel. Finally, before we begin our discussions, I would like, on your behalf and on my own, to renew our frontal feelings of solidarity and compassion because the year 2019 was a very deadly year in the Sahel and the Lake Chad regions because of the increase in attacks by terrorist groups. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as the Republic of Djibouti assumes the presidency of the AU Peace and Security Council, I would like to underscore the imperative of this summit, which is aimed at finding a solution to two closely linked crises in our continent, namely the crisis in Libya and the crisis in the Sahel. As we are always aware, security and stability in Libya and therefore in the Sahel are integral parts of world peace, security, and stability. The fall of the Libyan state in 2011 has been the multiplying element of the flare-up of the Sahel space. Therefore, any proposal that aims to be effective must necessarily include the resolution of the Libyan crisis. I am not telling you anything new when I say that external interference in Libyan interior affairs has upset the regional chessboard. leading to destabilization of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso and beyond, and the emergence of malicious actors that are weakening our states, sowing death on a daily basis, causing thousands of refugees and displaced persons and destroying basic social services. Since the beginning of Libyan crisis, Africa has been marginalized and frustrated in its efforts to stand in solidarity with their brothers. We have deplored this on many occasions, and today, the situation in Libya and its consequences on a whole region are indicative of the limits of multilateralism whenever Africa is not involved in solving its own problems. It is time for us to recover our prerogatives and assume our responsibilities by collectively reconsidering this situation and experimenting with another new path. That is why our meeting must propose a clear and exhaustive roadmap to meet the challenge of multidimensional instability in the Sahelo-Saharan region. 3 points deserve to be addressed without taboos. First, what is our strategy in the short, medium, and long term? What is the status of the development process? Does it take into account the specificity of the threats in the Sahelo-Saharan region? What are its objectives and priorities? In view of the correlation between the Libyan crisis and instability in the Sahel, should we not adopt a single strategy? Secondly, what are we proposing with regard to the resolution of the current political and security crisis? To quote our brother President Pierre Buyoya, there is a traffic jam in the Sahel. Everyone wants to do something or wants to be seen doing something. Consequently, it is necessary to identify and, above all, to operationalize the added value of the African Union in complementary with the existing ECOWAS and the G5 Sahel Joint Force and the Joint Multinational Force. Finally, as I said in Brazzaville, it is imperative to review our arrangements. We currently have an ad hoc committee for Libya, 2 senior representatives of the President of the Commission in the region, 2 heads of liaison officers, a mission for Mali and the Sahel, 2 liaison officers in Libya and Chad. Is this configuration optimal? Do these entities have adequate financial and human resources to fulfill their mandate and to a volatile environment? As a reminder, in September 2019, the leaders of the Economic Community of the West African states pledged at their last extraordinary summit to mobilize $1 billion American over 4 years to combat jihadism in the region. In turn, proposed in Brazzaville that we mobilize the Peace Fund in order to finance African initiatives in this serious crisis. It is crucial that the Council take a decision on the issue. This summit, ladies and gentlemen, is being held a few weeks after the PAO summit, the Berlin International Conference, and the Brazzaville High-Level Meeting. We should welcome all these initiatives, particularly the Sahel Coalition, which is the outcome of the joint declaration by the head of state of the G5 Sahel and the French Republic, and which comprises 4 pillars, namely the fight against terrorism, the strengthening of military capabilities, support of the return of the state and the administration, and lastly, development assistance, with highlighting the centrality of Africa. If Africa wants to make its voice heard and act effectively to contribute to the stabilization of the Sahel and the well-being of its people, we must provide clear answers to these questions. Before concluding, I would like to thank the President of the Republic of Congo, Denis Sassou Nguesso, for his commitment and tireless efforts to promote peace in Libya through active diplomacy. Dear brothers and sisters, I wish us fruitful deliberations.
The Defense Minister in charge of our relation with Parliament, Mr. Hassan Omar Mohamed, received today the Deputy Minister of Defense of the Czech Republic, Mr. Toma. This is part of a working visit. The Deputy Minister accompanied by Mr. Pavels, the ambassador, in addition to the delegation of a businessman, a discussion between the two sides focus on relation between the two countries and ways to develop, to strengthen them to the border and the border horizon, especially in the defense file. The meeting was also an opportunity for the country businessmen to show the Minister of Defense of Djibouti and the military and civilian industry and their innovation in the file of military equipment. The Minister of Economic and Finance, Mr. Ilyas Musadawali, share and receive this morning a delegation from the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development headed by Dr. Samir Al-Kutub and Dr. Khalid Rajib, accompanying the delegation of the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development. The advisor of the President of the Republic in the file of investment was also attended, Mr. Fahmi Ahmed, and the Director General of the Djibouti Electricity Company, Mr. Jama Ali. During this meeting, discussion focused on the existing partnership relation between the Fund and the Republic of Djibouti, the historical relation between the Fund and the government, especially at the energy sector. So it is worth nothing that the Djibouti Electricity Company is seeking to implement the network development project and the construction of a new power station in Demerjog. The Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, Mr. Yunus Ali, received today a delegation from the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development, which includes Mr. Samir Al Kutub and Dr. Khalid. The visit of the Saudi delegation came within the framework of developing the electricity network for the Republic of Djibouti. The fund recently confirmed its readiness to finance a 100 megawatts power station that works on a full as power centers that will accommodate 50 megawatts will be built in the Asujuk and the other in Demerjog, the implementation of a major infrastructure project and the meet to the needs of the electricity. The Minister of Economic and Finance, Ilyas Musa Dawali, and the Minister of Budget, Abdel Karim Aden share a meeting this morning in the presence of their representative from the Financial Department and local banks located in Djibouti country. The meeting aims to prepare a study of a consultation between leaders and the national financial sector. The meeting took place in the presence of several financial activities in the country, commercial banks and the World Bank. In a speech to him, the Minister of Budget, Mr. Abdul Karim Aden affirmed that the government and the financial sectors enjoy an important role, which will work hard to conduct a variety of consultation, recalling all the initiatives and studies carried out by the government so that the banking and financial sector can contribute more to financing the national economic. In a speech to the Minister of Economic and Finance, Mr. Ilyas Musa Dawali said and stressed the necessity of the strengthening cooperation between the private and public sector. He stressed also that after the diagnostic studies conducted by the World Bank and the development of national strategies on financial inclusion with both of United Nations Development Program and with the support of the World Bank, we are carrying out on an update process the payment systems in the Republic of Djibouti, and we focus on working to raise the level of cooperation between the private and public sectors. The Minister of Economic indicated that the government intend to assume its responsibility in the regulating governance and facilitating the environment of a private sector in general and in particular the banking sector. Still on national news, the club association headquarters witnessed a consultative meeting in the Hambuli district. This was during the meeting they touched on how to support the people and the initial assistance that should be provided to the people due to the limited income. These and women participating in this meeting present their skills on how to organize work that aims to support the citizens who need it the most. stand by them in the difficult circumstances and overcome the difficulty stages of life. This was participating in the occasion of the Minister of Women and Families, the Mayor of Djibouti, and the remote President of National Union of Djibouti Women, alongside the female parliamentarians and the officials of the Association for the Care and Honesty and Women who live in the neighborhood. The President of the Association thanked all the officials for the effective participation in this meeting. In turn, the Minister of Women and Family commended the effort of this group, which is doing a noble work in order to test the citizens who need it most. She said that this consultative meeting is aimed to better know the situation of all people, especially the people in need, in order to support them in all areas and support the citizens who need the most. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sport, Mr. Hassan Mohammed Kamel, received in his office this morning advisor to the International Football Association, Mr. Balsens. The meeting was attended by the President of the Djibouti Football Association, Mr. Suleiman Hassan Waberi, the coach of the framework from the Djibouti Football Association. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sport discussed with the Tunisian international advisor to the establishment of a football academy and ways to promote and develop Djiboutian footballs in order to participate in regional and international sporting forums. The Secretary General of Youth and Sport stressed the necessity for providing supporting structure with the sporting supplies in order to discover young talent. From his role, International Football Association advisor Mr. Belsen pointed out the support of International Federation of Djibouti, and he expressed his satisfaction for the development that reached the Djiboutian guard in the field of footballs. A team led by the Director of Maternal and Child Health, Ms. Fatima Ali Abdallah, went to the city of Dikhil for talks and local authorities on nutrition and the regional level. This comprehensive consultation comes within the framework of awareness raising in the overall national soul on nutrition. This is with the technical support for the UNICEF to strengthen the national nutrition of response program to combat malnutrition, and at the regional level, which also seeks to improve food security. The President of the Regional Council and the Prefect of Dikhil region discussed the region with Ministry of Healthcare in order to plan this strategy. Moving on to the international level, at northeastern Thailand, a soldier killed 26 people. The Prime Minister announced Sunday, saying the killers' motives were personal and the events was unexpected in the country. Let's listen to this report.
In northern eastern Thailand, a soldier killed 26 people. The Prime Minister announced Sunday, saying the killer's motives were personal and the event was unprecedented in the country. According to the Prime Minister, the event was unprecedented in the country. On Saturday, a soldier killed 26 in a shopping mall in northeastern Thailand before being shot dead. After an all-night night of intense gunfire and images of cows escaping from the carnage in the mall, elite troops shot the assailant in the early hours of the morning, ending a bloody 17-hour journey that kept the country on tenterhooks.
This is it for this edition. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful evening.